Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today, by request, I'm bringing back one of my older video formats to the channel. This is a comic book haul video. I used to do these videos monthly, but I found myself a bit fatigued or feeling like I had to keep up with my own number of books every month. Anyway, I decided to go ahead and shift this format to an occasional haul here or there. I think this is only my second of the year. I will have a caveat saying that I did get more books than this since my last haul. These are just 10 books I've gotten recently that I want to showcase for the haul video for all of you. Before we jump in though, I do want to shout out the channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you want to pick up your own comic book collected editions for your own haul, you should check out their website. You can find a link for it in this video's description. If you see anything there you like, you can actually use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order today. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now why don't we get started with this haul? In no particular order, I'm going to go ahead and kick off the haul video with the Captain America by Nick Spencer Omnibus Volume 2. This was one of my more anticipated books coming out this year. I could not wait to finish out this run. And ironically, since getting this book, I have yet to really delve into this book that much. I'm already caught up in all of these other books I'm reading, but I can't wait to jump back into this world. I had a blast reviewing and reading through the Volume 1 last year, and I knew that it finished out with this book prior to the events of the Ta-Nehisi Coates era of Captain America. I know that this omnibus also includes the main issues for Secret Empire, the Captain America-based event that occurred during this time, and honestly, between the rest of the run and that Secret Empire storyline, I really am excited to go ahead and finish out this book. This is at a time where Captain America is maybe less than his normal moralistic self. Maybe I'll leave it at that. We have Falcon stepping in as another Captain America here and there, and it's really a great run. I am a big fan of Nick Spencer in general. I've enjoyed this writer ever since I read him in the pages of Morning Glories over at Image Comics, and I've been dabbling with a lot of his Marvel series in recent years. I find myself becoming more and more of a Captain America fan as time goes on, and I really, like I said, I enjoyed his Volume 1 Omnibus when I read it, I believe sometime last year in 2023, so when I found out that this was coming, this was a pre-order. This was something I knew I wanted to get to, and I have a feeling I'm going to jump into this sooner rather than later, as long as I'm able to find time in my reading schedule. The art throughout it seems pretty consistent with the Volume 1, a lot of gorgeous art here assigned to it as well. Let me know in the comments, are you a fan of Captain America? Have you read this entire Nick Spencer run? Have you picked up this omnibus? I'd love to hear all of that. I know there's another cover available for this omnibus as well. Let me know in the comments if you picked that up. I personally love this cover with Sam Wilson and Steve Rogers just kind of glaring at each other in their gear. I just think it looks really sharp, and I'm really excited to have picked this up for my collection. Next on the haul list today, we have what is kind of a boomerang book for me. This is the Spider-Man Death of Spider-Man Omnibus from Marvel Comics. This takes place in the Ultimate Universe. It's linked to that Brian Michael Bendis Ultimate Spider-Man run. This is, I think, more of an event omnibus. We have issues of the main Ultimate Spider-Man or Ultimate Comics Spider-Man run in here, along with a couple mini or maxi series that all tie into the titular Death of Spider-Man. I say it's a boomerang book because I actually had an older printing of this exact omnibus years and years ago that I actually sold away when I thought I was getting out of comic books. When I heard this was being reprinted and knowing I have all the other Ultimate Spider-Man omnibuses already, I really hope to get a copy of this. Really excited to get this in for the channel. I will be reviewing this for Organic Price Books as well as on my own channel in the coming months. I've read most of this content before, some of this content before, so I will be excited to finally finish this omnibus proper and to refresh myself with this material. I know some of what's included in here comprise some of my favorite issues of Ultimate Spider-Man. I think that they're poignant and powerful and really emotionally gripping. And then there's a lot in this omnibus, like I said, I haven't quite got to yet. Like some of the other like little mini-series that tie in, things that involve the Ultimates, I really haven't delved into that. So personally, I am curious to think what I'm going to feel about this omnibus, reading it cover to cover in the coming months. So if you are interested in my thoughts on the death of Spider-Man, you'll definitely have to stay subscribed, get that bell icon to make sure you don't miss when I drop the review on that. Like I said, I expect that in the coming months, but really excited to have this back in the collection. I think it's going to help fill out that Spider-Man Omnibus shelf, and I do think it's a fun little book. It's not over long as well, and it's fun to have kind of an event-based Spider-Man book in the Ultimate Universe. But anyway, this is the Death of Spider-Man Omnibus. And hey, if you're enjoying this haul video and you've yet to subscribe to the channel, I would just like to invite you to do so. I'm always doing comic book based videos like this, or comic book reviews, different comic book list videos. I even dabble with live stream here and there. Anyway, thank you for considering. Now let's keep this haul video going. Next up, another Marvel Omnibus. This was one of my most anticipated reprints for 2024. This is the Fantastic Four by Mark Waid and Wieringo Omnibus. I have really wanted to finish this comic book run. Ever since I really jumped back into Fantastic Four after reading the Jonathan Hickman run, I have become a kind of rabid fan of Fantastic Four. I've been trying to just buy up these omnibuses and read as many as I can, and this is one of the glaring spots in my collection. I did have some of these in paperback, some of this run I should say. I think I even reviewed the first arc, the Imaginauts, on the channel, but I knew that this was a run I'd want to return to. Mike Wieringo is an artist I'm not overly familiar with. I've seen him show up here or there, but Mark Waid is one of my favorite comic book writers, and with Fantastic Four being one of my favorite comic team books, this feels like a no-brainer. And like I said, this was a big hole in my Fantastic Four Omnibus collection, so when I heard about this reprint, I could not wait. Definitely a pre-order for me, and one I'm excited to finally make my way through to completion. I am reading this right now. I'm in the middle of a particularly fascinating Doctor Doom-based storyline. I'll leave it at that. But I really appreciate Mark Waid's approach to the Fantastic Four overall. I think he makes them feel very human, feel like real people with real relationships. I think the group feels like a family again, which I don't think every run quite understands, and I think that that's to the strength of this run, at least so far. Of course, I'm sure I'll have way more thoughts once I finish this book proper and give it a review, but what I'm understanding so far, I do think that this is a pretty prolific run. I do see why it has such a huge fan base. I will say, while I love the artwork from Mike Wieringo, it's not quite to my taste. I think it's a little overly rounded or cartoony for me, but I think that that really is shocking given some of the darkness we have in some of the storylines. I think that that juxtaposition is really fascinating, and I'm interested to see where it goes. But like I said, this is Fantastic Four by Mark Waid and Mike Wieringo, and it's one I was so excited to pick up for this haul. Okay, the next book here for the haul is an unusual one for me. This is the Power Pack Omnibus Volume 2 from Marvel Comics. And I am delighted and humbled to say that this volume was actually donated by one of you amazing comic book YouTube watchers, friend of the channel, Roji. Thank you so much, friend, for this donation. This is honestly a title I'm not sure if I would have gotten to without a donation, so thank you. I'm excited to read more about Power Pack. Before I got this book, I had only ever seen these characters in the pages of something like Uncanny X-Men or in the pages of Fantastic Four. I know at least one of these members joins the FF, the Future Foundation, during I think Jonathan Hickman's run on Fantastic Four. That's actually how I first became aware of these characters. Then I saw them in, I think, like I said, X-Men. But I know they are a group of superpowered kids, and they get into some pretty intense hijinks. I know that this is a run that is kind of a fan favorite for those that were growing up at the time this book was coming out, so I'm not sure how I'll feel about it overall without maybe some of those nostalgia glasses. But having kind of tiptoed into this book so far, I do think it's a lot of fun. I think the characters are pretty well written. The art so far in this collection is absolutely gorgeous. And like I said, I'm really happy to have received this. I was absolutely humbled by the offer, and I just think it's a really well-made omnibus. We got a ton of issues here. I was actually surprised with this volume 2. We go from, where this run was starting to kind of modern issues. There's a couple issues toward the back of this omnibus that came out in the 2000s. So we have some pretty modern issues in this book as well. We cover a lot of time with the Power Pack here. But yeah, I just think that this is a fascinating one. I would love to know in the comments, are you a fan of the Power Pack? What can you say about this run? Or do you have this omnibus? Again, I would love a little bit more feedback even as I'm making my way through, just to get more thoughts on this run. Like I said, I think so far the characters are extraordinarily likable, and I really dig the artwork. Next up, we have another anticipated omnibus. This is the Wolverine Omnibus Volume 5 from Marvel Comics. I cannot believe they're already up to Volume 5 for Wolverine. We're really starting to get pretty contemporary with the issues included in here. We are also in the territory where I have not read these issues myself. I'm still making my way through the numbered volumes in this omnibus line. I'm just trying to snag up as many of these as I can afford on my budget because Wolverine is one of my favorite comic book characters over here at Marvel, and I don't want to miss out on these omnibuses should they go out of print. Flipping through this, however, I will say I am starting to be fascinated by some of the artists we have in these books. I feel like so many of the different mini-series or appearances of Wolverine we have here, we have some really glaring and dynamic art changes book to book. I think some of the art here is just absolutely jaw-dropping, and some are maybe not quite to my flavor. I am curious to see what I'll think about the caliber of the issues present. I know some of you have already read the contents in this book, whether that was in single issue or you've already devoured this omnibus for yourself. This is another one I would love to get feedback on in the comments if you'd be so kind. I'd love to hear if this run is still going strong. I know reading the Volume 1 and most of the Volume 2, I am absolutely glued into the world of Wolverine. I've heard Volumes 3 and 4 are some of the best, so I can't wait to get to that. I've heard less about this time for Wolverine, everything kind of post-Fatal Attraction, so I am curious to hear, is this well regarded? Is this have kind of generally good feedback? Like I said, I still think there's some gorgeous artwork here. I love just flipping through, seeing some of the characters we have included, and I can't wait till I actually get to this volume. I really love it. This book is gigantic, so we'll see once I get to it. It might be a minute before I actually read through these issues myself as I'm still playing catch up, but really happy to have this in the collection, and I can't wait till I actually arrive at the Volume 5. Way to go, Marvel, for just continuing on in this Wolverine run. As a fan of Wolvie like myself, I just love seeing these big books rolling out. Next up on our haul, we have my most fascinating entry, perhaps. This is the Micronauts Omnibus Volume 1 from Marvel Comics. This is a licensed property from, I believe, Hasbro. These were a group of toys, the Micronauts, that Marvel got the license for and produced these comics for. I think in the 70s is where they started this run. This is a straight-up kind of science fiction, almost like space exploration kind of story, although it's inner space, not outer space. But it tells the tales of the microverse, where these Micronauts came from, and also when they kind of go into our world, or at least the world of the Marvel 616 universe. It sounds like these started as toys, and the comic writer, I think Bill Matlow, his son, this is I think in the introduction, his son had these toys, and they didn't have a backstory, and he went up to Marvel and said, hey, we should license these, because I think that we could give a fun storyline to all these toys, and all the features they have, things like that. But we have just a really fascinating science fiction story of what this microverse looked like, how these characters came to be, how they try to outrun this like cruel, barren, evil character that in many ways reminds me of like a Darth Vader kind of figure. And the fact that this was coming out toward the end of the 70s, where I know Star Wars boom was coming and the height of this kind of wave of science fiction stories, I think that this became kind of a cult classic kind of series. I know Marvel got the printing, I think, license back for this and ROM recently, so they're rolling out these omnibuses. I believe that this is Volume 1 of a future 3-volume set that includes the entire run. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I heard that. I am really enjoying my read through this so far. It's definitely different than I expected, but I think it's pretty fascinating, and I cannot wrap my head around the fact that this is in the Marvel universe. It feels so disconnected. It feels like such its own just story. I actually even heard the Enigma Force, that kind of Captain of the Universe power, debuted in the pages of Micronauts. So again, I'm really interested to see what that's all about, but I guess stay tuned. If you're interested in a review on this, definitely stick around the channel. I'll hopefully get that out in the coming months as well. Okay, the next one is a big deal here. We have Thor by Walter Simonson Omnibus. This was a reprint this year that I couldn't wait to get my hands on. I just started becoming a Thor comic fan in the last year or so. He was a character I liked on the big screen, or I loved in the pages of like crossover events or in Avengers, but I wasn't really as interested in his solo stuff. But I got turned around on him. I actually jumped into that Matt Fraction run when I reviewed that, and I was suddenly really fascinated by modern modern Thor. I know, though, that Simonson's run is one of the most well-regarded runs in the character's history. I think that this was during the 80s. I had read some of these issues before. I had a couple of the paperback volumes for the Simonson run, but I knew that there was an omnibus that collected the entire thing. And I was really hoping to get a copy of that, but it's been out of print for a while. The prices were really not what I was hoping to pay. But when this came out and was reprinted, I knew that this was one I was going to try to get, should budget allow. And then I actually got it, I believe, as a Father's Day gift. So thank you to my wife and my kids. This was such a fun gift. I'm really enjoying making my way through this. Something to note, though, this was recolored. So the omnibus we have here has recolored issues. The previous printings of this omnibus all have this same recoloring, but this is a different coloring job than the actual issues when they came out back in the 80s for Simonson here. But they were recolored to look more modern. I know that this is pretty controversial. I think they did something similar with the Absolute Swamp Thing over at DC. Whenever you mess with kind of the originals, I know there's a lot of collectors or fans that get up in arms, and I certainly understand that, but it sounds like this is Simonson's preferred version of his epic, and reading it for the first time, I love the coloring. I actually have gone online and see some of the original colors, and I actually prefer the modernization. I think that it makes it look a bit more polished, it makes it look a little more contemporary, and it just has a whole different feel to it than some of the other inkings we had at the time, or colorings. But anyway, that might be controversial, but I do love what we have presented in this omnibus, and I can't wait to finish out this run. Now, switching over to the DC side of the fence, we have Swamp Thing, the New 52 Omnibus. This was written primarily by Scott Snyder and Charles Soule. Now, I did get this in within the recent months, but I've actually already read and reviewed it on the channel, so it might look familiar to longer-term watchers of the channel. But if not, and you want more information, you can check out my full review of the Swamp Thing, a New 52 Omnibus. This was so much fun to read. This was something that, as it was first coming out, I bought the first couple paperback collections of this run back when Scott Snyder was writing it, and something happened. I just kind of fell off of this book. I always wanted to go back and read this title. Never quite got there, though, but when I had a chance to get this omnibus, I was so excited, and I really loved reading and finishing out that Scott Snyder era. I'm a huge Scott Snyder fan, but I was actually surprised to find that I preferred the back half of this omnibus even more. All the content that was written there by Charles Soule, I think, was more reminiscent to me of what I thought of when I think of Swamp Thing stories. They just kind of got surreal and interesting. The first half of this book reads like a body horror action epic kind of blockbuster sort of movie. The back half, I think that there's still pretty epic scale storytelling, but it's a little bit more of a slow burn, a little more psychological and surreal in many ways. And I think I just clicked with that more as a Swamp Thing fan, at least my flavor of Swamp Thing. But overall, the whole book here in one, the whole, New 52 era, I should say, in one book, you get a real bang for your buck here. A big diversity in the collection as you go from writer to writer. But I love that you have it all in one hardcover collection. This was, like I said, a ton of fun. The artists we have throughout this book are absolutely stunning. I saw Swamp Thing in ways I had never seen before, and I've read some of his earliest appearances. I read the Alan Moore run, which I'm a huge fan of, but I saw Swampy in some new ways in this collection, and it was just really fun to get back in the swamp and just really get back into this character. Cannot recommend this book enough. I think especially if you like your books with a little bit of a horror kind of bend to it, this is definitely one to take a look at. Okay, next up on the channel, we have the Secret Six Omnibus, Volume 1 by Gail Simone. This is another DC Omnibus, and this was one I just devoured. I'm not really sure when I'm going to release this haul, but I did also finish a full review on this book recently. Again, I'm not sure if it's going to come out immediately before or after this haul video, but it's in the pipeline, so if you haven't seen it yet, definitely stand by, it's coming. But this was a really fun set. We not only have the debut Villains United miniseries that introduced this team in the pages of, kind of like that Infinite Crisis event era, but we also have a good arc in the Birds of Prey run that is heavily featuring the Secret Six, along with a couple of the Secret Six self-titled series. But it's a really fun collection. It's not overly long. I think we have something like 30 issues or so, give or take, 30, 40 issues, I don't know. Mostly written by Gail Simone, though. We have a couple great artists on this. Omnibus. This is a fun, modern run. The issues, I think, started around 2005, so it feels very contemporary. For those that maybe have no background for Secret Six, it's another kind of rogue-based mercenary team group. Think something like Suicide Squad, or for Marvel, something like the Thunderbolts. It's something like that. These characters are kind of all a D-list tier of DC villains, for the most part, that band together to do their own missions, usually for some kind of financial motivation. A lot of dysfunction on this team, but a surprising amount of heart. The art throughout it is gorgeous, and this was a really fun one. We also have some great introduction, kind of written stuff. We have some great extras at the back, including some kind of retrospective kind of interviews with some of the creators, and I really just cannot say enough positive things about this book. I had such a blast reading this. I know this is kind of funny for the haul, but I just had read this maybe a week ago at the time of this recording, and so I'm still kind of just riding the high of this book. I'm hoping DC gives us a volume 2 in the not too distant future. But for right now, this volume 1 was one I was very happy to pick up a copy for. Last but certainly not least, we have the Batman and Robin Eternal Omnibus from DC Comics, and like Power Pack before this, this was donated by an incredible watcher of the channel, so special shout out this time to Blur Jose. This was another, again, just humbling offer I got to review a book that they just wanted to donate. This is also a title I was actually looking at that I had never read myself, so again, a huge thank you to you, sir. Thank you very much. I have started this book as well, and so far I am loving it. I admittedly have not read Batman Eternal, but I was told by some other friends of the channel that I didn't actually need that to enjoy Batman and Robin Eternal, and so far I'm finding that to be the case. In fact, I think what might be more important would be the Scott Snyder Batman run and the Grayson run for Dick Grayson, both of which I've already read, so I feel right at home jumping into the pages of this omnibus. For those like myself who until recently didn't know, this is essentially a Bat family-based storyline. While Batman is in it, it more primarily focuses on the Robin characters and some of the other vigilante-based proteges of the Batman. This is also at a very specific time in the Batman mythos, after the storyline Batman Endgame by Scott Snyder, but certainly before the end of his run, and I will leave it at that. It's to avoid spoilers. The art we have throughout this collection is absolutely gorgeous, and I really like some of the writers we have attached to it. I know James Tynion the Fourth for one, and this is just a really dialed in collection so far. I will say I'm maybe a quarter through it or a fifth through it. I'm still just delving into it, so I'm not really sure how this will all shape up, but so far I am thoroughly enjoying the ride. I am confident that this is one I will also probably review on the channel in the coming weeks to months, so if you are interested in that, definitely stick around. But yeah, this is Batman and Robin Eternal, another great DC omnibus, and so far, like I said, it is a ton of fun. I am curious as well, please avoid spoilers, but if you've read Batman and Robin Eternal, I would love to get your feedback on that book in the comments. Okay, and I think that's going to start to wrap us up today for my haul video. No occasion for this other than, like I said, I had my hauls requested a couple times in the comments. I know that this used to be a fairly frequent segment. If you are interested in that, let me get some feedback. Otherwise, I think I might still do this just as able here and there when I want to showcase some upcoming pickups, but I don't know if I'm going to bring this back to a monthly level, but if that is something that the viewers want, definitely chime in and let me know. Otherwise, this has been a haul video. I would love in the comments, in addition to some of the feedback on these books, if you've read any, I'd love to know, what are you hoping to pick up in these coming months for your comic book collected edition collection, or what have you picked up recently? What have been some of your hauls you want to showcase or shout out? Are you reading anything good? Let me know all of that in the comments. I'd love to get some good discussion going, some great recommendations for others who see these comments. And I think with that, we're going to go ahead and say, until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like, that comment we talked about, and maybe share this video with a friend. Thanks so much. Have a good one.